Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Lost and Found podcast. This is your host, Amanda, and I am so excited. We have a brand new guest here with us, and we're covering a topic we don't normally discuss, our love lives and how those can impact your relationships and your ability to transition well when you're going through a particularly difficult identity crisis or when you're feeling very in flux. Today we have Alissha Davis, and she is a dating and relationship specialist and the founder of the Nomad Love Lab, a relational intelligence brand for people who are navigating love across cultures, transitions, and non traditional lives. Her work focuses on what happens to people's love lives when their identity is in flux. So think of your career pivots, your relocation, your personal reinvention periods. These are the seasons when people are the most self aware and they are most likely to make their worst dating decisions simultaneously. Not because that they're broken, but because their nervous system is operating under a completely different condition than they may be used to. So, guided by her CED method, clarity, emotional regulation, and discernment, she helps her clients slow down, recognize their patterns early, and make grounded decisions in love. So, everybody, please join me in welcoming Alissha Davis.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Amanda. It's a pleasure to be
Yeah.
here.
Thank you. I'm glad you're here too. And when you first reached out to me, I got pretty excited because, like I said before we started recording, this is something I don't normally talk about. It's not something I normally share about, and maybe that's partly because I'm trying to avoid whatever it is that I'm doing wrong in my dating life and I don't really want to face it. So maybe it'll be good to have a safe space together where we can talk about it, and I know I will learn a lot about maybe what I could do better, especially because I'm going through constant transition right now. I feel like this last year of my life has been nothing but that. So maybe I can learn patterns that I'm participating in. So super excited to have you here. Yeah.
I'd love to dissect what's been going on with you and help the listeners as well. Let's get into it for
Let's
sure.
get into it. Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about your work because you reached out to me because you said that you could tell I'm building something for people that are navigating the in between. So, what exactly was it that you recognized about my show or about me that made you interested? And what is the in between mean in your world, in your line of work? What does that look like for people?
Yeah, well, honestly, what attracted me to your podcast was really the title. It said everything. Like lost and found, that dichotomy is my life. I've been living abroad for the last 11 years, starting off in Thailand and then living all around the world. And now I'm currently in Brazil. So I've experienced so many different communities, different people, and my own identity being constantly in flux. So it wasn't just that I studied the in between, I've lived it. I live it every day. And that's what I recognized was that you're someone that is building a space for people who feel exactly like how I felt, not lost, not found, in transit, and just needing some support to help get us through it.
You're exactly right. You nailed it there, especially because the whole show was built on that original thing. Like if anybody goes back and listens to the beginning episodes, they're me really emotionally and frustrated and upset about leaving my old career behind and having that identity kind of die off and not understanding what that meant to go through timeline grief. I always thought you cried about a breakup or you cried about someone passing, you cried about something that felt far more tangible than letting go of an old version of yourself. And so that was always really, really hard for me to comprehend and reconcile those emotions. So that's why the show started. So that's awesome. It means all my SEO is working really well because it's pulling in guests. And I was like, my website's amazing. Thank you, Lauren. Yeah, for helping me. Yeah, for helping me build that life because it attracted the right people here. So I love that. Well, what have you always lived abroad? Were you like an army brat or moved around or, where are you from originally? What made you go, you know what, forget the US, I'm going to go somewhere else? Or maybe you're not from the US. I'm making an assumption here.
Oh no, you heard the accent correctly. I'm from California, from the San Francisco Bay Area. Honestly, I had never thought I would have a life abroad. I was barely traveling when I was living in San Francisco. It was just by chance that one of my friends was going to visit a few of our other friends who had moved to Thailand to begin teaching English. And he asked if I wanted to join him. And I said, do I want to go to Coachella or Thailand? And I chose Thailand and went there and absolutely fell in love with the way that my body and my mind suddenly opened. I felt like there was a bubble that had bursted and I was I just immediately fell in love with the lifestyle and essentially drank the punch, I like to call it. And I had decided I was actually going to move to Thailand before I left that 2 week trip. So it was only 3 months that I was back in San Francisco before I had pretty much sold everything and packed up and said I was leaving for a year, thinking that was the truth. And here we are 11 years later.
11 years later. That's awesome. So where else have you lived besides Thailand?
Yeah, it started. So Thailand was my original home base for about 5 years, but I was also circulating around Cambodia, Indonesia, Australia, Malaysia. I feel like I'm forgetting a few places, but in terms of like places I actually like lived in, but of course did a lot of traveling around as well. And then when I was working for a sports clothing company that's based in the Bay Area, we had a remote team that was all based in Bali, where I was living at that time. And my boss asked if I was up to relocating to South America. And it was up to me to pick the country because he wanted to have a remote team that was closer to our clients in the US. And so,
Nice.
yeah, of course, I said yes. I brought my Bali dog with me and we started off in Cambodia and Colombia.
Oh, I love Colombia. I went to Cartagena last year. It's so fun.
Love Cartagena. Unfortunately, I didn't move Cartagena for living long term. I didn't
Mm,
see that being realistic. So I went to Santa Marta, which is a smaller version of Cartagena, about a 3 hour drive south of it, and was there for about 9 months. But I really Brazil kept calling me.
yeah.
It just, yeah, it just kept coming up, and especially this magical island called Florianopolis. And I was like, it sounds like a made up place.
I was gonna say, what? It's like,
Especially when I had to convince my boss, the boss at the time, that moving down to Floripa was a good idea for the business as well. And I
mhm.
was like, it sounds like a fake place, but I promise it's real. And it's absolutely gorgeous. I loved it so much. I lived there for 2 years before moving to Rio de Janeiro, where I've been for almost a year now.
Wow, that's amazing. And do you still currently hold that job as well as doing the Nomad Love Lab, or do you do Love Lab full time?
Occasionally I'm a project manager for them. So, sorry, excuse me, a consultant for them. So if they need me, they know where to find me. I was with the company for 6 years as well, and I was the general manager of the company. So I just have so much knowledge. I hired majority of the team. It's just easy for my boss to be like, hey, Alissha knows about this. Let's bring her in
Yeah.
for this project.
Yeah, she can do this again. I love that idea, but that's a really great way that you were able to build that relationship up to make that an opportunity. Because I know so many of my friends, they're always like threatening to move abroad, like I'm going to get out of here, I'm going to go somewhere else, I'm done with this. But finding a job abroad that can actually afford the lifestyle that they want or maintain the continuity of their needs and things like that, that's really tough. So that's awesome you were able to work that out.
Oh yeah, it's incredibly difficult. Have felt extremely lucky, but I really did work really hard to solidify my value in that company so
Mhm.
that when it was time for me to say, hey, there's actually other passions I have. Do you mind if
Yeah.
I go and try to achieve those? They were extremely supportive. And like, I couldn't ask for any better situation out of it, honestly. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah.
Well, what made you think about love though? Out of all the side hustles people could have, why would dating and relationships be important to you or, call you in the same way?
Yeah, I love when people ask me this. Like, how did you get into this industry? So it goes back to essentially middle school. I was already a natural matchmaker and dating coach, sex advisor, even though I had never been kissed or knew what sex really was. I was just always giving out advice from a very young age and was always that friend that would notice like people crushing on each other, but they're too shy to say anything. So like helping to be that middle bridge. But fast forwarding to when I was in Thailand, the first couple of years, I went through a pretty traumatic relationship. And when that ended, it was luckily time for my birthday. So I went on over to Koh Phangan in Thailand for a breathwork session.
Mm,
And that was my first time doing such an amazing type of experience where just really dropping into my body like that. And that's where I was able to hear the information of the downloads that I'm supposed to be working with love. Like that I am love, and that it's not just that I'm supposed to exude love, I'm supposed to help support love. And so I asked all my friends at that time, I'm like, I still don't quite know what that means. And they're like, but you're already a matchmaker. You do this all the time with us. And I'm like, wait, I just never put a label on it. And so then that sparked the idea of, okay, well, let me try to start hosting some singles events. And so I did that in Koh Samui and then in Bali, and then COVID hit and kind of slowed me down.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then I refocused back into my previous career, and once that was back in order, I was like, hey, everything's looking good with that business. But what about you? What are your passions? And I was like, oh yeah, let's get back into the matchmaking, into the date coaching. And so then it was time for me to refine my studies, to go to dive deeper, really educate myself, not just on my personal experiences and my intuition, but also understanding the biology and the hormones, everything that's happening with our bodies when we are falling in love or going through a breakup. And then diving even deeper into how does that affect us as digital nomads and travelers, and expats, like people that are constantly in transition, traveling around the world? How does that impact us? And so the more that I kept digging, the more that I realized there needs to be a safe space created for people within this lifestyle. And that is why I decided to create Nomad Love Lab.
Yeah, I've had long distance relationships before. My first one right after high school was with someone who was from New Zealand. So, and I lived in Mississippi at the time when I was going to Ole Miss. And so for the first like 3 years of that college experience, I was with someone that like rotated every 6 months. They had a visa to come into the US to work for 6 months and then they'd go back to New Zealand and vice versa. So, and I went there twice. It was tough. It was very tough to try and do something like that when you're one, I was younger, of course, so I didn't have all the money to travel the world all the time to do those other cool things. But I remember that being really difficult. But like at the time, it felt like that was the right person for me, and that was the right relationship. And you went for it because you felt love and respected. But like sometimes when you're traveling abroad, you're like, this is just a fling. I'm gonna have fun on my girls trip or whatever, not really turn it into anything serious. And sometimes people can get caught up in that because it feels so much like the Hollywood story or something, and then when it ends you're devastated because you're like, but we connected, and you're like, wait, but did you really though? Or is it just that was something that younger me had to deal with like later in my 20s? Just because I'm traveling and I met someone doesn't necessarily mean it needs to turn into a forever thing. Sometimes abroad flirts are serving their purpose exactly as is. But other times, I'm sure people can really benefit from your guidance when they are abroad or when they are nomadic. How do I do this?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially since post-COVID, so many remote workers have sprung up and have started sprinkling around themselves around the world. And I think the recent projections are by 2030, it's supposed to be about, I think, like 20 million people will be calling themselves digital nomads or will be remote workers.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, to see that, those projections were predictions, and to see that there's not really any space for supporting love lives. I mean, we barely have therapists supporting people in this lifestyle.
Right.
So I really felt like it was not just something that I wanted to do, but something that was needed.
Well, I love that you started to create your own events too. Like, so in the different spaces where you were living, I would love it if Nomad Love Lab had retreats. So it's singles
Yeah.
retreats where you're doing it in the different countries, and you come because you're single and you want to just have fun, and whether you leave with somebody or not a big deal, but all the events that you set up enable you to meet other people. That'd be kind of fun to be like, "Oh, I'm doing the Love Lab this month. I'm going to this country or whatever." I think that'd be kind of fun because I don't know. Right now, with no single, no kids, you have that extra income. I could go to speed dating at my local bar, or I could do a whole week of nothing but crash course, awesome stuff in Mallorca. I don't know,
Yeah,
and
no,
I'd be like,
exactly.
I'll do that. I'll pay for that. Yeah.
Yes. No, I'm really excited that retreats are in the
Mhm.
works. Yeah, really excited for the retreats. But more, sorry, before we do that, but while we're building up the retreats, I am really excited about a recent new partnership with Unseen Connections, which is a blind speed dating company. So imagine a cross between speed dating and Love is Blind, where everyone's wearing blindfolds. And you are
Interesting.
Yes, it's amazing. And you're pre-matched with four people before the event, and those are the four people that you actually do the speed dating with. You don't do it with everyone there. Concept of having you're blindfolded and you're really just having to get to know someone for who they are and not what they look like. We'll be hosting our first one here in Rio next month. They've already been hosting events in, let's see, London, Lisbon, New York, Prague, Berlin. I think that's it for now. But yeah, I was so lucky to meet the owner when I was in Portugal in December, and we really hit it off. And I'm really excited to bring it here to Rio with her.
Oh
But
yeah, I
yes,
think
we're in the works.
I great. Well, you've got to keep me up to date about that. Or if there's a
I
newsletter or something we can join, let us know at the end of the show, and we'll get people to sign up and pay attention to those because I think that'd be fun too. For anybody that's single and loves to travel, you should reach out to Alissha. I'd love to dive in a little bit because you don't always. We're sitting here talking about all the fun stuff that happens while you're dating and being abroad, but for anybody that's listening that is maybe has a similar story to me and they're going through a difficult transition, sometimes you realize you're going through the difficult transition and everybody thinks that they're a perfect person until they actually start dating someone, and then you get that mirror shown up to you, and then you're like, that thing that I do is actually annoying, or the thing that I do is actually not a good habit or whatever. But you've said in the past that people that are going through all those different types of things, a relocation, a career pivot, personal reinvention, are moments when people are becoming the most self aware, but they're also most likely making the wrong dating decisions at the same time. And so I'm wondering if you could explain exactly what exactly is that contradiction, because self awareness is supposed to make you better or protect you, right, from making a bad decision. So why are people not when they're in those moments?
It's honestly, I love this question because a lot of us don't really dive deep into understanding what's happening here. And it's that our bodies are in fight or flight mode. We're hyper aware of everything that could go wrong. But when romantic love enters the picture, our dopamine floods our brain's reward system. And those same circuits that activate for addiction are activating when we're falling in love. So that surge actually reduces anxiety, which is fantastic. But in part, it's also responsible for judgment. So at the same time that oxytocin is suppressing our cortisol, the stress hormone, our stress drops, our guard drops. And you interpret that all of a sign that this person is right for you because we feel open, we feel seen, we feel drawn to someone, and we think finally. And what's actually happening is that the nervous system has found a regulation source. That's all it is. And we're dressing it up and calling it destiny.
Right.
That we've manifested it, we think we've called it in without realizing this is not actually what we really were asking for.
Yeah. So if you were talking to a potential new client, or you were trying to help a friend that was asking you for advice while they're dealing with a transformative moment, but still interested in dating, what are kind of the signs that you would notice where you're not doing the self-awareness, or you're not paying attention to these things, or you're about to make a really big mistake? Are there signals, or are there words or terms or things that you notice in people where they're actually walking through that path in that moment? Because I know sometimes you're like, I'm doing great. I went on 5 first dates last week. None of them called me back, but I'm just going to keep swiping and moving on to the next. Are there signs or signals, little red flags that we're just not even noticing about ourselves when we're going through those bad decision moments?
Yeah, there's two sides to this. There's when we're exuding positivity compared to when we're in a more negative state. When we're going through something really traumatic. So let's start with the positive aspects, especially like when, for example, like when you left the FBI, I imagine that you were a bit terrified at first, but you were also incredibly proud of yourself, weren't you?
Yeah. I mean, it was it was the agony of the decision. Like I wasn't mad at myself for leaving, but I was mad that I even had to make that choice to begin with, if that
mm,
makes sense, where like you're really sad. But I looking back on it now and everything that's happened in the FBI since 2022, I got very, very lucky that I left when I left. So again, hindsight being what it is, but yeah, it was mostly you're doing the right thing, because I felt better the moment I left, the moment like I shut the door the very last time. I was like, wow, I am fully lighter now, but it was still just, it felt sad because I was mad that I even had to make that decision.
I can understand you. Let's imagine for a moment that you left on because you were excited to start a new direction in life. It was just time for a change, and you were feeling completely solidified in your decision and really excited about what was to come next. So when we're in that state, we are glowing. We are beaming with light. Like honestly, because we have made such a brave decision, and that's something that we're really proud of. And when we're exuding that light is really real and it's magnetic and it attracts everyone, including the bad ones.
Yes.
So yeah, what ends up happening is that it's everyone that ends up wanting your energy because they see your light. Not necessarily they see you as a person, they just see the energy, the light, and they want that. And that's what ends up happening is that people don't realize that they're actually a target when they're beaming that bright, unfortunately. I hate to say that, but that's what ends up happening compared to when we're in a more negative transition in life where we're going through, a big loss or grief. It can look the opposite, like when we're at rock bottom, because the clarity about where our life is going, what we need, it's gone. So that well inside of us opens up wider and we end up letting people in that we never ever would. So the behavioral tells are more that we start to lose self-respect for our bodies. You'll start to see more people pleasing. There's definitely a fear of abandonment that starts to emerge as well. And we're really just trying to fill a void by the loss. And unfortunately, our blinders are just not able to see clearly at that time.
Yeah. So building that off of your CED method or SED, however you describe it, how did you get to the CED method? And when somebody is in the positive and when somebody's in the negative, what do they look like in each of those letters? So like a positive person, their clarity level may be something different versus a negative person. Their emotional regulation may be different and their discernment may be different. So I'm wondering what does CED look like for both people, both options you just came up with?
Yeah, so for CED, it doesn't matter if you're in a more positive or negative transition. It still needs to start with C and move its way through E and get to D. So everything revolves around clarity with ourselves. And if clarity collapses first, that's our foundation. If you don't know who you are, what it is that you're looking for, how to establish your own boundaries, then how can you expect to actually find alignment while you're dating? Because you aren't clear with yourself about what you're even looking for. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why you can be in a really positive state and be really excited about what's to come in life, but you're still not clear about what it is you have to offer, what it is that you can even provide in a relationship. Are you even available for a relationship? Are you
That's
so
the question.
yeah,
Yeah. Well,
are you
God, sorry, I'm laughing at that because like my family asks me that all the time. So who are you dating? Who are you talking to? And I'm like, I live in the middle of the woods. Who am I going to talk to? The farmer that's down the street? No, I don't think so. That's not how this is going to work. I know I'm not emotionally open. I'm an approachable person and I'm kind and I'm nice and there is a positivity, but the actual am I emotionally available to be with someone? Probably not right now. And I think that sucks. But you're right. It's good to have the clarity about where you actually stand before you try and make a move with someone.
Yeah, because that's where we end up getting stuck in a relationship is when we go in open, willing to go with the flow. And then as we're moving through it, we start having more and more expectations. And then we're like, oh, wait, shouldn't these expectations have been established in the beginning? But now you've already had like weeks or months pass by that you're like, you know what? But I feel really attached to this person. We do have a good thing going. Let's just keep trying. When really there wasn't actually much of alignment or compatibility right from the get-go.
Yeah. When you are working with a new client, how do you help them build up the C, E, and the D together? What are the questions you would ask them about clarity? Maybe if these are things that maybe individuals that are listening right now, they should start asking themselves.
So when I'm first starting off with a client, I spend so much time before we even really start talking about their dating life. I just want to learn about who you are as an individual. What are your goals? What are your needs? What are your wounds? Because once I understand that, then we can talk your framework of what clarity actually looks like for you so you have something to refer to. It's a lot of times people forget that we have our values and our ethics that we're supposed to be constantly referring to. And having a framework around how we approach dating is absolutely necessary as well too. So once we've established like what is actually needed, what you can actually provide in a relationship, what you're actually able to offer if you are emotionally ready for a relationship, then we can start moving into the E, the emotional regulation. So with that, that's me working with a lot of somatic practices, teaching how to tap into the body, listen to it in ways that many people actually aren't used to doing. I feel very lucky that I'm an empath. So I feel a lot.
Same.
And oh, they're beautiful. Yeah, and so when we feel a lot, it can be kind of confusing sometimes to understand like what are our feelings versus someone else's feelings, especially when we're in a relationship. Yeah, so being able to learn somatic practices, how to be able to listen to your own body, to know how to go back into our bodies to regulate ourselves. Because what ends up happening is that when we're in a relationship, that partner is actually helping to regulate our nervous system, when we actually need to be the one responsible for that as much as possible. So once we have the emotional regulation, a plan for that worked out, then we can move into discernment. And discernment, that the reason it comes last is because the ability to be able to read other people clearly, we can't get there if we don't have clarity with ourselves and we don't know how to regulate ourselves. It's really hard to be able to identify a narcissist or anyone that might have any alternative motives other than to love you. If you aren't clear, if you're not regulated yourself and clear with yourself first.
Yeah, that's definitely tough. And I'm sure you've noticed this sometimes with your own clientele that people, or definitely on social media too, people are very quick to just say, gaslighting and narcissists and like they're an abuser or whatever, or just they'll say all these things for a relationship that just wasn't the match, right? So then those words get watered down and they almost get mislabeled or overused. So then once you actually start to see something like that actually happen where it is a dangerous relationship to be in, you don't really realize it as quickly as you could have, because everything looks, if you only have a hammer, everything's a nail, right?
Yes.
So yeah, so that's really good. I like that you have, it almost sounds like you're helping them build building blocks. So like you get better at each level. The more you understand your own self and your own clarity, you can have better regulation. And then of course, discernment's almost like the reward for doing all that extra work ahead of time. You have the ability to go through that. Yeah. Well, I'd love it if you could explain a little bit for us, for anybody that is in the middle of a transition, which of those do you think tends to collapse first? Is it your clarity that goes sideways, your emotional regulation, or your discernment? And does it drag the others down, or can you have one breakdown without the other two failing, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's always, when I was building out this framework, it took me about a year to really figure out the order of everything. And I kept going back to clarity is first. And, clarity is kindness as well, as a motto that I like to say. The more clarity you have with yourself, the kinder you can also be to yourself too. So when clarity collapses first, remember that's the foundation. Without knowing who you are, nothing else can hold. So when clarity goes, emotional regulation has nothing to regulate from. Because you're not being there with yourself. So what ends up happening is that your nervous system is making choices for you because you aren't. So when regulation goes out the window, discernment becomes impossible because you can't read someone clearly when you yourself are dysregulated and unclear. It really is a cascade effect. So if C falls, then E has no foundation. If E goes, then D is just you seeing what you want to see, not the reality.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I've definitely done that before. Or like you're like, that's not a red flag, that's beige, or that's they totally love me. Like they called me last week, they're gonna do it again. Or they told me they'd do it on Tuesday, but then they don't call for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever it is. Or the whole adage, they always come back around at some point, and you don't really want to rely on that happening, because even if somebody does come right back around, you can't guarantee it, and you don't know that it's actually for real either. So that's good. I'm glad that you teach people about what to look out for from that. You mentioned something a bit earlier about how if we don't have the discernment, sometimes we can mix up when we're dating someone and they can quiet the noise in our head versus somebody that actually is a good fit for you. I'm wondering if you could kind of explain the phrase, someone who makes my uncertainty feel quieter versus somebody who actually is the right fit, and what's going on there when that's going on, when people are in love and things like that. Why are we mistaking the quieter feeling versus somebody's actually right for me?
Yes, oh man, it goes back to the body and this time to our hormones, because oxytocin Yeah,
Okay.
oxytocin is suppressing cortisol. It's suppressing our stress hormone. So once we have affection and intention from someone we're attracted to, that stress comes down and our bodies perceive that as safety. But safety gets mislabeled as rightness. You know what I mean? Like your body can tell that you're being regulated, but it cannot tell whether who is regulating you is good for you or not, at least not in the beginning. And that's the big conundrum.
Are there any, when you're talking to a client who might be caught in that kind of pattern and they're gravitating toward people who are just soothing that noise instead of actually connecting with them, what does it sound like when they say these things to you or when they debrief you after the date? Are there specific words or phrases that your clients or your friends are saying where you're going, uh-oh, you're confusing the quieting the noise with this person being right for you?
Absolutely. Every single time. It's serendipitous. It's magical. I manifested this. I called this in. They feel overwhelmed with the moment
Mm,
and not about the person. So I always start to ask, like, how did you meet? It always ends up sounding like a movie, like an extreme meet cute. And then I ask, well, what's so amazing about them? You know, you keep saying how amazing they are and how this, I hear amazing over and over again. I'm like, okay, so what's so amazing about them? And they'll say things like, oh, they're just really kind, they're a really good listener, and just go back to that word amazing again, honestly.
yeah.
But yeah, but I don't hear anything about who the person actually is. So, like,
Mhm.
that's the big coaching tell for me. They describe how they feel. Sorry, they describe how the person makes them feel, not who the person is. That's the red flag to me.
Oh yeah, because then you're everybody, what is it, like the honeymoon phase is like your first, what, 10 months or so, maybe the first year if you're lucky, and then after that you really start to get to know someone. Everybody's always on their first best behavior during the first few dates, and they want to
Mhm.
impress you. They want to be their best selves. They want to live up to those expectations. And then after a while, it's kind of hard to fake that for forever. And eventually, you have to either be yourself or you have to leave. Like, which one is
Yeah.
it? So if you're, yeah, I can understand where you're like catching somebody going, okay, but beyond what's their favorite color, like where,
Beyond that,
what
we
did they
both
grow
have
up
the
with?
same
What are they
fear.
afraid of? Yeah, what actually keeps them up at night? What else do you know? That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, sometimes though, I'm sure you've seen this maybe in your own relationships too. When we have something that's actually feels healthy and stable, maybe you're even growing together, you're having a lot of fun together. Like from the outsider looking in, you look like that whole hashtag couple goals thing. But sometimes just because a relationship reads like it's stability, sometimes it actually could be emotional anesthesia. And so I'm wondering if you could kind of explain the contradiction between the two there and why sometimes these conflicts are much harder to catch than you might think.
Yeah, no, sometimes it's difficult to tell and it can take time to truly and asking a lot of questions because people are really good at lying to themselves. But the major tell for me is that they start making major life decisions for the partner. So giving things up, changing their lifestyle, changing their direction, not because they want to, but because they feel like it's easier because they're tired. We've been so independent and they finally feel safe again. So people are willing to do a lot to keep that feeling of feeling safe. So from the outside, it looks like settling down and growing up. But from the inside, it's that someone else is making the decisions for you. And that's why it takes a lot of the right kind of questions and asking, how are you making these decisions? To fully be able to see, oh, you're not the one who's consciously making these decisions. You're just making them for your partner.
Yeah. So, what advice would you give to somebody who may be dealing with that particular problem? How do they interrupt that pattern in real time so that way they're not having that they're not, I guess, almost developing a codependent type relationship where they're only happy if their partner's happy, or they're only able to do something if it's with that person, or they will only be happy if they move across the country for that person, or they give up their job, or they change their lifestyle, or whatever it may be. Like, what can we do to interrupt that pattern in real time for ourselves and become aware of it and start trying to do something different? What do we need to do?
To me, it's quite simple, only because I practice this and preach this and see it worked with my clients, but I call it the anchor effect. So when our identity is destabilized, our nervous system stops looking for compatible love and just starts looking for someone to hold on. So it can start looking like we're moving too fast, we're idolizing the person, we're tolerating things we would never normally do, or our attachment wounds feel devastation from this slightest bit of change. So it ends up looking like love. It can feel like love, but it's really just our attachment systems doing a triage, honestly. So it's not that it's love, it's just our attachment system finding someone safe and calling it destiny.
Yeah. Have you ever had an experience similar to this? And would you mind sharing maybe any of the moments where your clarity or your emotional regulation or your discernment was failing you and you had to figure that out and break that pattern?
Absolutely. This actually recently happened to me a few months ago. I went through a pretty traumatic experience with my father suddenly passing away in a car
I'm so
accident.
sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. Thank you. But of course, that really rocked my whole nervous system. It really threw clarity out of the window. I was not able to regulate myself, so my discernment was also slim to none. So what ended up happening was I thought that I had found solitude, a safe place with someone new because they were a great listener, which is what I was needing at that time, only to realize that he was completely sober, no alcohol. Whereas for me, I do occasionally love a glass of wine or, a beer at the beach. So in my mind, I was thinking, well, being sober curious has been something I've been actually really interested in. Maybe he's the catalyst to help get me to where I want to go. But wait, why am I doing that just for this other individual? Why do I need to wait for this catalyst before just doing it on my own? So once I took a step back and did some shadow work with myself, I was able to see that actually this relationship is really not in alignment with my long-term goals. So because I did not want to be alone while I was healing, I was latching onto someone to help fill that void when really we weren't compatible. So I'm really glad that I was able to take that step back and be like, you know what, actually, I do not feel comfortable making decisions to change my lifestyle based on where we are in our relationship at this point in time. And he also agreed that it didn't make sense for me to be doing that for him. So we just agreed at that time to walk away from each other, but we're still friends.
Yeah. That's good that you were able to have a respectful conversation because I know sometimes when you want to open up and explain the difficulty you may be having with your own clarity with a partner, they sometimes people can take it really personally, or they're like, why are you doing this to me? Or how could you say this? Or why I can't believe you feel that way? Or like they kind of throw it back at you. So that's nice that you were able to be vulnerable and honest, even if it wasn't something that partner wanted to hear, but at least you were able to be true to yourself by saying, I don't think this is right. At a bare minimum, I can't keep going down this path. And that was at least nice that they were able to receive that in a pleasant way, even if it was hurtful, you know?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Being able to have better clarity about who we're even letting into our lives. I really do date nice guys. I date people that are really great at communicating and
Good. Yeah.
are really empathetic. So being able to have closure and conversations is really important to me. And so yeah, it was a fantastic feeling that he was able to actually hear me, connect with me, and not abandon me in that process either. So I feel very grateful.
Yeah. So, how has your dating life kind of changed from when you were living in the US versus now becoming an expat or a nomad? Has your experience of relocating and rebuilding your life multiple times over, how has that kind of shaped your understanding of romance and relationships and this work that you're doing?
Yeah, it's definitely 100% my life abroad, my nomadic expat lifestyle. It's interesting. I was before hopping on here today, I was seeing a hot take from Subway Takes and how expat is a racist term now, which a lot of people do actually mention this. We're all
Really?
immigrants. If you're living abroad, if you're traveling, you're an immigrant. It's just that we Westerners, we like to call it an expat instead. But yeah, my life
Interesting.
abroad um has definitely shaped a different understanding of love, mostly because I'm able to see so many different cultures
Yeah.
and an understanding about the way that we all look at this world is so different. And being able to open up our minds to understanding that maybe the way that you grew up and learning what love looks like, or how you should create love, what a meaningful relationship should actually exhibit, all of those things are really personal to the individual and also to their partner. And so being able to witness many different cultures as well as different types of relationships has really just made my heart and my mind so open to so many different types of possibilities, while also keeping in mind that I'm still figuring this out myself too. And I think that's what makes me stand out from other experts in this field, is that I'm down in the trenches with the
Yeah.
every single too. I'm seeing this on a day-to-day basis, and I'm going home and I'm writing little case studies about it and dissertations about it, and I'm researching and wanting to understand more and more why we think, act, and behave these ways. And to me, it's just so fascinating, and I'll never stop.
Yeah. No, well, and the longest relationship you're ever going to be in is with yourself, right? So it makes sense that you're going to try and collect data throughout the rest of your life. And who says you can't date into your 70s and 80s?
Of
I'm sure
course.
you have clients of multiple, maybe you have a core group, but probably have clients from all over the world, from different age ranges and different life experiences, and potentially different orientations or different, you just mentioned like some people want different types of relationships, whether that's monogamous or polyamorous or just single, casual kind of stuff. I guess people call it not ethical non-monogamy. I don't
Yeah.
know. There's too many phrases for me. I am super old school. Either I'm with you or I'm not. Those are the only two options. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I love having discussions about polyamory. I am not polyamorous myself. I'm very much monogamous.
Hmm.
But I think it's fascinating for people to go through this journey of self-discovery and exploring different relationship types. Like I'm fully for that, because it always brings you back to yourself. Whatever experiences we set ourselves up for, we're meant to experience. So go give it a try. Allow yourself to take risks. That's the only way we can learn and evolve.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So for the last year, I've been living with my parents and I have not dated while I've been here because I've just been purely focused on helping them and helping my grandparents out and just trying to recover financially from launching the podcast initially and just figure out where it is I'm going to go. And my parents decided they want to move further into North Carolina. I don't want to stay in East Tennessee. So I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to move to Florida because I love visiting my friends there. It's sunny. I've always been a beach baby, a water baby. I have a lot of friends that live in Florida and it won't be fully starting over, but it's enough where I think ideal Amanda is outside more. She's doing these kinds of things. She's going to these types of gyms. She's eating these types of food and she doesn't live here. So I think that's a big thing for me, but I'm
Excited for
sure
you.
just like your clients, I'm in the middle. I'm not there yet, but I'm also not dating here. So I don't want to use the apps and say I'm in Tennessee and swipe on Tennesseans, but also don't really want to swipe on Floridians yet either because I don't live in Florida. So for somebody that is maybe like me, where they are in the middle of kind of a transition, they're changing jobs, they're moving cities, they're going somewhere else, but they don't want to give up on their love life. Is there anything we can do right now while you're in the middle of a transition? Or should you truly just be like, no, I need to pause because I'm not really ready and I'll know at a different point in time when to start or when to try again? Do you have a suggestion for anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. One, I always encourage us to date. There's never going to be a perfect season or a perfect time for us to be vulnerable and to put ourselves out there. There really isn't. I know we have this ideal self in mind that we think that a perfect partner would also really love. We just need to work ourselves up to becoming that ideal version of ourselves. But we really don't need to do all of that. The whole idea that we need to be healed before we can fall in love, like to me, that is a huge myth. We need to be in relationships. We need to be dating. We need for our wounds to be triggered because that's where the real healing actually happens. That's where we actually understand what we're capable of and what else we still need to improve upon. And sometimes dating, even for just the simple fact of dating, not for necessarily finding the one, but just for connection and getting yourself out there, practice. It's really helpful because what we're looking for in a partner is for them to help us heal. It's not always that we need a long-term partner to be able to help us to heal. It can be casual encounters as well. The goal is to find someone that doesn't call you out on your BS directly. What you're looking for is someone that actually wants to understand it and help you work through it. That's the goal. So yeah, to stop dating because you feel like your life isn't exactly where you want it to be, that is avoidance. And we want to make sure that we don't stay too long in that cycle. For example, when you are in times of your life where you are focused really deeply on a work project and you truly know you're unavailable, or you're going through a very big moment of trauma in your life and you know emotionally you're not available, yes, then you should not be dating. I think those are times where we can take a step back, but just don't let it go on for too long. Don't let the work or the depression fill the void that love should fill. When vulnerability feels more dangerous than loneliness, that's when you know you have a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Honestly, yeah, love is such an important gift that we can receive. And I get it. It's just so much easier sometimes to get distracted by other aspects of our lives
Right.
than
Yeah.
to put
Or
yourself
you,
actually.
or you keep blaming it on everything else, or like, oh, I have to do this, or I'm too busy doing whatever, or this is going on, or this is going on, versus is that really stopping me, or am I afraid of taking this next step or putting myself out there again? Yeah.
Yes, and I constantly have to remind people of this is like, are you talking to your shadow self? Are you actually tapping in and asking yourself those hard questions on a regular basis? People just want love and dating to be so like easy and free of consequences. But there's so many consequences that are involved. So the more that we go in understanding who we are and what's going on in our world around us will also help prepare us for the people that we do encounter and how we end up receiving them.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, Alissha, you've given us so much great content and advice and just general good ways to approach our love lives, whether we're going abroad or we're at home. And so I just really, really appreciate you being here and hopping on to chat with my listeners. I know we've got a small time crunch. So for anybody that's listening, I just wanted to ask our final core question. What would you say to somebody who is feeling lost and trying to figure out the next stage of their life, but they don't really know where to get started?
Beautiful question. Yeah, I'm a professional transitioner, I like to call myself. So there's always something moving and grooving in my life. So when we are in major transitions, I like to remind myself and to remind other people that it's just a phase. Nothing is permanent. We are constantly growing and evolving. That's the whole point. We're supposed to go through transitions. Life is not always supposed to be peachy keen and sunshine and rainbows, you know? Change is good. If you're not working towards growing and evolving towards the vision of yourself that you're hoping for, I'm sorry, but you're not really playing this game of life correctly. Life is about
Dang, she's calling you guys out.
take the risk.
Take the risk. I love that. That the summary of the whole show really is honestly every episode. Just take the risk. Do it. Try it. If it doesn't work, try something else.
Yes, it's okay. It's dust yourself off and try again. I guarantee you learn so much about yourself in that transition.
Wonderful. I think that's amazing advice. Thank you. Alissha, please tell everybody how they can work with you or how they can find you if they want to hire you as their coach or they want to participate in your future retreats. How do we do that? Where are you?
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on here today with you. I really enjoyed our chat. But if any of the listeners felt like this resonated with them and you want to know, I would start with if you'd like to know your dating archetype, you can head on over to my website. Yes, alishadavis.com. Or if you're more nomadic, you can go to nomadlovelab.com and take my free CED assessment. I will tell you exactly which pillar is your weakest right now and why your love life looks the way it does. And if you're ready for a private one-on-one support, both websites also have my coaching application, and I would love to work with you. Honestly,
Wonderful.
thank you so much.
Absolutely. No, I will definitely make sure I will put all of her links and her website information into the show notes. So if you want to find Alissha, go over there, follow her on Instagram, check out her stuff, fill out that CED assessment. I did mine. We didn't get the chance to go into it, but maybe we can do a part 2. If you guys want to do like a backstory on Amanda, we can do some more. We can do the reverse and Alissha can interview me on the podcast. But
oh my God, I would love to.
Yeah, well, we'll set that up. But in the meantime, you know how to find us. You can email me hello@podcastforthelost.com. I am at Podcast for the Lost on all social media. You can watch this video on YouTube and we'll drop new episodes every week. And you guys hang in there and keep dating and keep loving and keep, being true to yourselves. We'll catch you later. And remember, wanderers are always welcome.